By the time the last ribbon was pulled loose, the room had learned its rhythm. My mother liked pacing. She believed suspense made generosity feel larger. She handed gifts out in a slow circle, pausing to explain why each one fit its recipient, as if meaning were something she could assign retroactively. I sat where I always sat, near the end of the table, close enough to be seen and far enough to be dispensable. When she reached my sister, she laughed and said she'd saved the best for last, then moved on. Plates clinked. Someone coughed. The dog nosed at wrapping paper like it was snowfall. Eventually, there was nothing left. My mother folded her hands and looked at me with a smile that didn't reach the corners of her eyes. "Be grateful you can sit here," she said, as if she were offering a benediction. My uncle leaned back in his chair and added, "Be glad we still remember your name." The laughter came fast, practiced. It filled the room the way laughter does when it's doing a job. I felt a familiar pressure behind my eyes. The one that comes when something old confirms itself. Years of this had trained me not to move too quickly, not to argue for space in a story that wasn't mine to tell. "Good to know," I said. It sounded neutral. I was proud of that. I stayed for dessert. I helped clear plates. I hugged everyone goodbye with the right amount of pressure. On the drive home, I noticed how calm I felt. Like a room after furniture has been removed. There was sadness in it, yes, but also relief. Clarity has its own temperature. Over the next days, I didn't announce anything. I simply stopped doing what I had always done. I didn't pick up prescriptions, I didn't mediate disputes. I didn't advance money with vague promises of repayment. I didn't show up early to fix what others broke late. It wasn't dramatic. It was thorough. 2 weeks later, my phone buzzed with messages I didn't answer. Then the doorbell rang. Sharp and insistent, like an alarm someone couldn't turn off. Through the peephole, I saw coats I recognized. Faces tightened by urgency. My mother stood slightly forward, her mouth already forming explanations. "We need to talk," she called. "Open up." My uncle knocked with his knuckles this time, harder. "Please." I didn't open the door. I stood there listening to my own breathing, surprised by how steady it was. They needed something. That much was clear. What they needed wasn't emotional, it had edges. Deadlines. Consequences. I opened the door just enough to stand in the frame, not inviting anyone in. "What's wrong?" I asked. My mother's voice softened instantly. Like a switch flipped behind her eyes. "There's been a misunderstanding," she said. "We didn't realize how things were set up." Behind her, my uncle muttered about paperwork. About timing. About how none of this was supposed to be complicated. I nodded once. "I told you a dinner was good to know." She frowned, confused. "This isn't about that." But it was. A letter had arrived at my address the week before. Official, heavy with logos and language that left no room for interpretation. A compliance notice. An audit. A requirement that certain responsibilities be met by a certain date, or benefits would be suspended. Responsibilities my family had long assumed I would handle quietly. Efficiently, without recognition. I had forwarded the letter to the appropriate office with a single sentence. "Please note I am no longer authorized to act on behalf of these parties. Authority does not argue, it confirms." Now it stood between us, invisible but solid. "We just need you to explain things," my uncle said. "You always know how to talk to them." "I used to," I said. My mother reached out, then stopped herself. Her face shifted through familiar shapes, irritation, calculation, something that tried to look like remorse. "We didn't mean to hurt you," she said finally. "You know how jokes get." I did know. I knew how laughter could be used to make a boundary feel small. How humiliation could be framed as tradition. "I'm not hurt," I said. That was mostly true. "I'm unavailable." The word surprised me with its accuracy. They talked for a while longer, voices rising and falling. Offering revisions of the past that placed the problem somewhere vague and external. I listened without correcting them. Correction would have been a gift. When I closed the door, my hands shook a little. Not with fear. With the release of a habit finally broken. In the days that followed, the messages slowed. Then stopped. I heard through others that things had been resolved. Not cleanly, but sufficiently. Systems have a way of demanding attention without caring about feelings. I didn't feel victorious. I felt lighter in a cautious way, like someone testing a limb after a cast comes off. At the next holiday, I made other plans. Nothing elaborate. Just somewhere I was expected because I chose to be there. Sometimes dignity doesn't arrive with apologies. Sometimes it arrives when you stop accepting a seat offered as charity and realize you were never asking for permission in the first place.